Well, blessed Wednesday to you as we come to you through daily encouragement. And we are in the middle of page 79 in Life Together. And this is the third part, the day alone, what the importance of silence means in our Christian walk. As I've said before, have been more oriented in my life as an extrovert. And as I've grown older, I've gotten to appreciate the alone time. I was an extrovert, yes, but I was also an only child, and so I always had a tension between alone and being together with people. I yearned to be together with people, but now with that opportunity to be together, I've seen the balance and the beauty I had of alone time that I also had from my earliest childhood on. And it is important to have a balance in one's life of both. And one can go through periods of time where we are oriented towards both. And so as he speaks about alone time, he talks about our culture, Dietrich Bonhoeffer here, in Life Together, about a insistence sometimes to always be doing something, to always be active, to always be talking. I remember meeting an even more extreme extrovert than myself, and I remember he was at a party and he all of a sudden hit a pause and he said, I'm talking, we should be talking, we're in fellowship. And he just couldn't stand the silence of the moment. It was a very revealing time, not just for him, but for me. Sometimes we can talk and all we talk is babble. But he says there is an indifference sometimes. This is in the middle of page 79, or even a negative attitude towards silence, which sees it as a disparagement of God's revelation in the Word. This is the view which misinterprets silence as a ceremonial gesture, a mystical desire to get beyond the Word. This is to miss the essential relationship of silence to the Word. Silence is simple stillness of the individual under the Word of God. We are silent before hearing the word because our thoughts are already directed to the word. As a child is quiet when he enters his father's room, when we are silent after hearing the word because the word is still speaking and dwelling within us. We are silent at the beginning of the day because God should have the first word, and we are silent before going to sleep because the last word should belong to God. We keep silent solely for the sake of the word, and therefore not in order to show disregard for the word, but rather to honor and receive it. It's a very interesting thing, even when it comes to the written word. If you've had the opportunity to see ancient manuscripts of the Bible, there was a few years ago. In fact, it was right before I came here at the Minneapolis Institute of Arts. They had or no, it was another display up in the Twin Cities. They had the Dead Sea Scrolls, and it was fascinating. Again, I'd seen some in Israel, but I was able to see some in the Twin Cities area, and people are commenting that all the block print is all put together. And that was because in the ancient world, even words or paragraphs were not necessarily separated from one another. And there is a few passages where one is troubled by a letter. Does it belong to the last word or does it belong to the first word? Because there is no word separation. And in some cases, especially in the Hebrew language, there is no vowels. All the block letters are all consonants, and the vowels make the sounds. So even in written form, there can be moments where words are jumbled together. But maybe sometimes you've been in issues where you're having trouble hearing. I have one congregation, I don't want to embarrass them, but we've had numerous problems with the sound system, and it is discouraging on all fronts when we can't hear things properly. But, sometimes it can be not something mechanical, not something just simply written. It just can be that we are cluttered in our lives, in our thoughts. There's so many things on our minds. I've toyed with that many times at some of our famous holidays like Christmas and Easter, where I know Many people who are having gatherings are probably distracted from the main message of the day because they're thinking about, did I leave the oven on? Did I leave the lights on? Do I still have enough plates? What if so and so brings extra people? All the things that are still crowding our thoughts when we should be concentrating on God. I'm not doing that to point the finger needlessly. I point it at myself. There are many of us clergy who put on the robe and put on the stole and are up there, and our thoughts are far, far sometimes from what we ought to be thinking and doing. I pray that those only happen a few times, but I've caught myself many times where the distractions can be leading away. And what we do is we have a disregard for the silence. When I first started serving as a pastor, I remember the liturgical people saying, there are parts of the service that are supposed to be parts to keep silent. And they're going to bother you as a leader because you're going to think that people will think you're either asleep or not working, or you're just going to have your own thoughts of thinking that I got to fill in the time and not have those moments of silence. But my friends, those are as important as the words I speak. We do have some, and I probably should add some more at times. But the key thing is that it is led by the word. It is led by communication. There's not something beyond it. I know that there are some philosophies that say that there is a communication that's deeper than words. And sometimes we've been told a picture is worth 1,000 words, but the key thing with words is that they involve communication. And the question we need to ask ourselves, in what are we in communication with? Are we in communication with one who speaks, who we believe is God, who from the very beginning, as it says in Genesis 1, created not necessarily with hands and stuff, but with words? In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Let there be light. Let there be separation of the waters. Let there be. God speaks at the very beginning, and then the revelation of John 1, imitating Genesis 1. John 1 says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And then John 1:14, the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. Or should I say, the Word became bread and wine, the Word became water and dwells among us. Promises to connect us with the divine Word that speaks to us. Not just what was spoken to in the written Word, but speaks to us today and will speak to us as all these things are drawn to a close. And we trust will speak to us just as he spoke to Lazarus, arise. God speaks to us in our darkest hour. God bless you today. We continue to trust that these are words of encouragement. Take care. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow.